Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Today we are going to talk about what happened in India, what happened in Kashmir, and what exactly did India do. It is important to remember that recently we have expressed alarm at the military buildup in the Indian occupied Kashmir. And there we have seen first CRPF cops were actually sent there, 40,000 of them. Then 10,000 Indian soldiers were airlifted to the valley. And finally, we have heard that after 28,000 more soldiers, now they are bringing in 8,000 more. That is not all. Today, Indian Parliament, Indian government actually presented an order, or a presidential order in the Parliament, claiming to abrogate Article 370 of the Constitution regarding Indian occupied Kashmir special status within the Indian Federation, and then abrogating Article 35A as well. It is important to remember that while we are talking about the international status of Kashmir, within India also, this move seems to be unconstitutional because within that article it is written, the subsection 3 of Article 370, that the Indian president can do whatever he wants provided Kashmiri Constitution Assembly actually approves of it. That never happened because there is no Constituent Assembly at this moment in Kashmir. So we are going to talk about these matters and more. And the fact remains that when India does something of this sort, the world seems to be silent for quite some time. We are going to talk about it. We have very, gifted panel with us. But first of all, let me talk to the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan Saab, who is with us on telephone line. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Sir, what would you like to say on the move by Indian government?
Couple of things. First, I would like to say that 370, Article 370 of the Indian Constitution was an empty shell because India had completely eviscerated it. It was a bargain between the National Conference, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. They, in fact, deluded Sheikh Abdullah into believing that Jammu and Kashmir, or the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, would be recognized as a state, and that there would be a president there and a prime minister there, and that they would have special status and their privileges would not be curtailed. They hoodwinked him and they won his loyalty, and that's how this article was inserted into the Indian Constitution. But you see, over the years, through presidential decrees, they encroached on the prerogatives or the rights of the AJK Legislative Assembly, not AJK, Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. So by the time they have revoked it, it is already an empty shell. And in fact, the most disappointed people there are pro-India forces and pro-India parties like National Conference, like the PDP, and the Congress Party in J&K, and also the BJP. But let me tell you that for the majority of the Kashmiris, there was no special status. It was an occupied territory. It was being brutalized by the Indian occupation forces. And this has been going on for the past 72 years. That is the bigger reality for them, and not a special status. They did not have any special status. Right. The one thing that India has done is particularly vicious is revocation of Article 35A, because it was not a gift given by India, but it was an inherent and inalienable right of the Kashmiris in regard to their permanent residence, employment, acquisition of property, educational scholarships, and so on. So the Indians are robbing Kashmiris of their rights, and they want to alter the demographic composition of the occupied territory by transfer of populations. What they want to do is that they want to deport some people and they want to bring in Indian nationals or non-Kashmiris, and particularly Hindus, and settle them in the Indian occupied territory. So what they're doing, they are making Kashmiris aliens in their own homeland. Now, let me tell you that some 2 or 3 other points that I want to mention is that the biggest and the immediate threat right now is this military preparation by India. They have cordoned off the entire territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and they have started killing Kashmiris there. And as Sayyid Ali Gilani said, that there is an apprehension that there would be a genocide there. And the world must intervene to stop this genocide. The United Nations Security Council and other international forums, they have a responsibility to intervene and prevent this genocide in Kashmir. India is already targeting Azad Kashmir across the line of control, and it has also committed aggression against Pakistan in the recent past, and there is every possibility that it might repeat that pattern of behavior this time. So these are some existential threats to the Kashmiris and to the people of Pakistan and to the people of Azad Kashmir. And we should intensify our outreach to the international community and hold India accountable for its irresponsible acts and also its crimes against humanity. India has already, in accordance with international law, has committed war crimes by taking these unilateral steps, because this is an occupied territory, this is a conflict zone, and India did not have any authority whatsoever to take these steps.
Right, sir. Mr. President, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for talking to us. And let us come back to the studio viewers. I told you that we have a very relevant panel today in the studio. I have with me Syed Fakhr Imam Saab, Chairman, Kashmir Committee of Parliament. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Air Vice Marshal retired Faiz Amir Saab, who's a pedagogue also, but also a defense analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, senior leader of APSC, All Parties Hurriyat Conference. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Fakhr Imam Saab, I have to start with you, sir, and I have to ask you, there are 2 cases, one an international one, especially when you look at through the prism of UN resolutions, and the second one is within the ambit of India's own constitution. Today it seems that India has trampled on both. How can Pakistan find justice for Kashmiris?
I think the fundamental point of view relating to Pakistan is the 1948-49 UNSC resolutions, because that is the basis upon which the Kashmir dispute was called a dispute. One should recall that it was the Indians who went to the UN Security Council in 1948 when there was a warlike situation. And they wanted to somehow stop that. And after great debates at great length with both sides presenting the case, the permanent members essentially and then others with them decided 2 things. And that's the basis of Pakistan's case even today, that A, Kashmir is a disputed region, and number 2, that it can only be resolved by the citizens of Kashmir through a fair, free vote, through adult franchise and under the auspices of the United Nations. Now, both have been blocked by the Indians for the last 70 years.
Right, sir.
And what has happened, if we come to today, this is the internal matter of India, Article 370, because it's in violation of the UN resolutions, but they went ahead and gave India, the Jammu and Kashmir state, a special status, as they call it.
Yeah.
And under that, there were 3 elements with the subjects with the federal government, which were defense, communications, and foreign affairs. The rest vested with them. And there was a constitution of the Indian-held Kashmir itself.
Right. So India, we hear that Umar Abdullah, leader of Indian National Conference, is actually going to move Supreme Court of India to actually seek justice. But AVM Saab, your take on this, sir? And what exactly has changed today?
Well, let me address the second part first. What has changed today? India had 29 states and 7 union territories before today. And today, by declaring the state of Kashmir as dividing it into 2 union territories, so now onwards, the Indian state, Union of India would have 9 union territories. Now there are difference of status within the union territories. 2 territories, Delhi and Puducherry, they have a status of a union territory along with the legislative assembly.
Right.
And the other 5 did not have it. So in today's decision that or the act that the president had signed, Jammu and Kashmir would have the status of a union territory with the legislative, and obviously they will remain under the presidential dominance. And the Ladakh, which is a separate union territory,
Will be
under the direct control. So
without the parliament.
Without the parliament. So that has serious defense connotations as far as we are concerned. Now, as far as your first part of the question was the legal implications, I think India's this particular act has legal implications for Kashmir, for Indian people, as well as for Pakistan. And I would find India in violation of Simla Agreement.
Right.
And let me read the clause 4 of the Simla Agreement. It says, in Jammu and Kashmir, the line of control resulting from the ceasefire of December 17, 1971 shall be respected by both the sides without prejudice to the recognized positions of either side. Neither side shall seek to alter it unilaterally, irrespective of mutual differences and illegal interpretations.
Right.
So what India has done is that it has changed the legal status of a territory which was under dispute.
Okay.
So it definitely is in violation of this bilateral agreement.
Right.
And I think when you violate an international law, you can be taken to the International Court of Justice.
Right. In contravention of UN resolutions, in contravention of
Simla Agreement.
Simla Agreement, Lahore Declaration, India keeps on throwing it at our face, in contravention of their own constitution, Article 370, subclause 3, which states that he cannot, the Indian president cannot pass any decree of this sort without first seeking approval of the Constituent Assembly.
Yes.
So,
And
is it fair, sir? Is it fair to not only fight the international case, but also contest this issue in Indian courts as well? Because then, if justice is not given to the people of Kashmir, that exposes the sham that Indian democracy and institutions are.
Yes. We have, I think we have both the options, and Pakistan should look at even increasing its options. We have the option, in my view, our legal minds need to look into it, because clause 2 of the Simla Agreement reads, in order to achieve this objective, the Government of India and Government of Pakistan have agreed that the principles and purposes of the Charter of UN shall govern relations between the 2 countries.
Right.
So that's clause 2 of the Simla Agreement. So we find that so far India has been harping upon the concept of bilateralism between Pakistan and India, but today they are in violation of that particular agreement that did establish bilateralism between the 2 countries.
Absolutely. So let me go to Vani Saab. Vani Saab, we have seen certain developments yesterday, day before yesterday. Indians, more police and more soldiers in the valley. Secondly, we have seen that internet service has been suspended, media is already dying, and now we see that mobile phones are being turned off as well. So after that, do you think that the Kashmiri people even know what exactly is going on?
Yes, exactly the way the Indians did it. Firstly, they suspended the yatra and asked the yatris to leave, then the tourists to leave Kashmir. Even in the greatest turmoil times, yatra was never suspended in Kashmir.
Right. So you're talking about Amarnath Yatra.
Amarnath Yatra. So it was suspected that Indians are going to do this, and along with that, on the build-up forces on line of control and also in the territory, the more troops the paramilitary troops they airlifted from Delhi to Srinagar and other places in Poonch, Rajouri, Kupwar, and all the places all over the whole of the population is in detention. I must say, is in detention. Whole of the population of Jammu and Kashmir is in detention.
Kashmiris are under
house arrest. All lines of communication have been shut down in Kashmir. So people in Kashmir even don't know what is happening. Even up to the last night, they were asking, when the internet services were there, they were asking us what's going to happen. There were some tweets from the young guys in Kashmir that bomb us at once, don't put us in such a confusion. The confusion over is there. Coming to this, what Indians have done really at this point of time, there's one silver line that Indians abrogated Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. This was this was the only linkage based on what they say the Maharaja of Kashmir has an instrument of accession with the India.
Anybody has seen that instrument?
Nobody has seen that. Neither the UN has ratified that. But because the India went to the United Nations with that and they surrendered that accession there, and after that, whatever the Indian forces were in Kashmir, these were because of the UN Security Council resolutions had put certain restrictions on them. But now, when India has abrogated that article, that negotiated settlement, what our president was saying that it was negotiated between Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah and Nehru and others. Now there is India is the real occupier this time. Right. They are the real occupier this time.
Actually,
officially, they are the
ISO certified.
They are ISO certified occupiers in Kashmir. Okay. So the people in Kashmir, they can't reach out to the international community what is happening over there, and nobody knows, and we don't know what is fate of our families at this time, how the Indian forces are conducting there, and what is happening especially in the Chenab area and also in the Pir Panchal area, where we have the people, the Hindu extremists, village defense committees with weapons, whom Indians army has already armored them with weapons, what they are doing with the common Muslims in Kashmir.
Wari Sahab, I have to go back to Mr. Chairman, but before I go back, I have to ask you one question regarding India's media's double standards. I've seen that Indian media is misquoting or quoting less of the Article 370. I mean, it is quoting the fact that the president is empowered, but it is not showing the proviso that is there. Without consultation of the Constituent Assembly, it cannot happen.
Yeah, that's because this Article 35A was introduced in the Constitution of India through a presidential order. It was introduced in the Constitution of presidential order, and thereby it was asked that any presidential order which will be issued hereafter will be ratified by the state legislative assembly, constituent assembly, and then they referred it to the state legislative assembly. But at this point of time, there is no legislative assembly. First of all, as was said by AVM Saab, that they have bifurcated the state. They have already violated all those fundamentals of UN resolutions and also the bilateral agreements between India and Pakistan. And also what they want to achieve in this was the demographic change. And now they can, by abrogating this, by putting on this, before they are trying, they will during 3-4 months, because they have the 6 months for this presidential order, and in that period of time they will conduct the state assembly elections, and by that way they will maneuver and they will delegitimize the assembly. They will manipulate.
Yeah, but I wanted you to expose the Indian media as well. We'll talk about that later, sir. Let me go back to Mr. Chairman. Sir, the question right now is, when you're looking at the circumstances, there has to be a response from Pakistan. What exactly can Pakistan do to shine light on what is going on in Kashmir, sir?
I think Pakistan has already moved, in the sense that our foreign minister has written very strong statements both to the Secretary of the UN,
Secretary General of the United Nations,
And probably we will approach all the permanent members, the P5, China, United States, Russia, France, Britain, and other powerful countries which who can influence India. Because ultimately what India has been able to do, it has trampled over all international law. It has just muzzled all human rights, of the fundamental and human rights of the citizens of Kashmir. And for the first time in the last 12 months, 2 reports have come out of the UN Human Rights Commission asking to set up an inquiry commission, which India has used some of the worst possible English words to condemn it. So these reports did not come out for 70 years. It's only 2018, June, first one came out, 9th July, the second one came out. And they list all the atrocities committed by the Indian forces. But one thing one must remember, despite the brute force of India, and it's the most highly militarized zone in the world, we must remember.
Yeah.
And the numbers that you have added virtually means that the ratio of the military to the civilians is very, very minute.
Right.
And there have been other reports. There have been 2 reports on human rights by the House of Commons.
Yeah, House of Commons.
There's one by the European Union.
Yes.
Then there's been a very highly documented report on torture of 430 individual cases. It's like doing 3 or 4 PhDs in the kind of torture that have they committed on citizens of Kashmir has been the worst possible human treatment. And
Right.
that the New York Times picked up this report for the first time, and they actually investigated it. They sent 2 of the reporters, and they have written in very extensively on this and pinpointed all of these tortures that they have committed. The Amnesty International also has done it, but
Yeah, but these are reports, sir. When do they translate into action?
well, the
The
action.
international outrage.
Well, you see, how can you predict? For instance, when Prime Minister Imran Khan was in the United States, you saw what the American president had said about him being approached,
Right.
and nothing so far came out of it. In fact, the Indians have used this opportunity to do what they have done.
Oh, yeah.
But one caveat. You see, not everything in global politics is in black and white, it's shades of gray. I mean, if there is, India and the United States have a strategic partnership.
Right.
How many of us know that they signed an agreement in 2005, which was debated at length both in the Lok Sabha and in the American Congress. And subsequent to that, we have seen that relationship go. Even at that time, we had a non-NATO kind of a relationship with the United
We
States
still have that status,
because they were requiring us in Afghanistan. No, that has now been very much minimized.
Yeah, but
And for
on
4
books
months.
it is there. Right?
Yeah, it may be there, but in practice, and they brought us on board primarily for the Afghan
Right.
facilitation.
And we are going to talk about Afghan bit as well because that is very important. But let me go to AVM Saab. Sir, how do we respond? I mean, there is one thing in seeing, wisdom in such reports, but there has to be some kind of action as well internationally.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we should look at our legal position of approaching ICJ.
Okay.
We should also encourage the Kashmiris to approach the Supreme Court of India against the constitutional violations.
Okay.
We should also look at approaching human rights organizations. And
Amnesty has
Amnesty
actually
is-
made a
and
statement.
actually, we need to sensitize all the powers, P5 and others,
Okay.
that by Kashmir becoming a tinderbox, you have a greater risk of a conflict in the subcontinent.
Right.
Because any heightened degree of resistance by the Kashmiris would actually be attributed towards Pakistan.
Right.
And that is going to exaggerate, or that is going to
It is.
aggravate the situation. The other point that I want to bring to your notice is, and that has a serious connotation, when Ladakh becomes a union territory under the direct control of president, it means Ladakh is virtually under the control of the Indian Army.
Okay.
When you have Indian Army controlling the entire Union territory, it means a lot of defense activities happening over there, which would threaten the peace process in our region. So I think looking at these two particular aspects, the increased resistance by the Kashmiri people will be attributed towards the terrorism and terrorism linked with Pakistan.
Right.
That is going to aggravate the situation. And then the military buildup in Ladakh is definitely going to impact the peace process and peace itself
in the entire region.
In the entire region.
That is important, but you brought up two aspects. One, going to ICJ. Second, sensitizing the P5, right? What happened day before yesterday was India started using cluster bombs across LOC. And at that time, we went to the P5 ambassadors and sensitized them. But with due respect, do you think that now Pakistan has to take this matter to the ICJ as well?
Well, if you look at it, today there was a news item that defense attaches of various countries were taken to Kashmir.
Yeah.
Now, the mere fact that the governments allowed them to visit Kashmir, it means the governments want to listen to it.
Our side of
Our side of the
governments.
story as well. So otherwise, they wouldn't have allowed their defense attaches to go to Kashmir.
Yeah.
So I think there is a chance that Pakistan can take up this particular aspect, and they were shown the damage done by the bombs, particularly the cluster bombs. I think they would have been witness, and since Pakistan had a strong case, that's why Pakistan took these defense attaches to the
Right.
Kashmir area. So I think there may be very little chance, but we must not give it up.
Right.
Pakistan has to continue to bring this awareness or this sensitization to the entire issue, and probably it should not rest here for next 1 week and then we go back to our own old
we
ways.
usually have that kind of approach.
Sure.
Vani Saab, if you remember, there was time when India started using pellet guns. You and I did a couple of programs here. And at that time, we kept on focusing on the fact that the then government actually sent its lawmakers as emissaries to various countries to actually inform them. Is it the right approach, or is it time to actually hire lobbyists all over the Western world so that this matter can effectively be pushed there?
If you remember, in those days also, we used to talk about that this is not a one-time affair. We should not do it one time that we have sent the envoys to the different countries and sensitized them. It's an ongoing process. We should have kept sensitizing the international world, the capitals, about what is happening in Kashmir. And these things which happen today, this did not happen all of a sudden. India was planning these things. We have been discussing these things in these programs over here, that they want to change demography, they would do this, they would do this, they would do this. They have at hand all these things. From last 5 years, when Modi came into power, they had in their election manifesto that they will abrogate the Article 35A, they will abrogate Article 370 of the Indian, 370 of the Indian Constitution. But this time they had the majority in the parliament and also in the Rajya Sabha. They took advantage of that and they did it at present. But what we need to do, what we want Pakistan to do, as Pakistani governments to do, that's serious diplomacy on it. It should not be that tomorrow we are holding a debate in the parliament, and that debate should not be the debate that we held in 2016. It should be a serious debate, and there should be a serious message to India, to the international world, and to the people of Kashmir, especially the people of Kashmir. People of Kashmir are looking towards the political governments of Pakistan, political parties of Pakistan, how they will behave. In the past, we have seen their behavior did not match to the sacrifices people of Kashmir gave. So at this point of time, when the whole of the population of Kashmir has been put under house arrest, they don't have any lines of communication, they don't have anything at their hand, and we don't know what is happening there. That this point of time, Pakistani parliament, Pakistani political leadership will have all parties will have to give a proper message to the government, to the India, to the international world, and to the people of Kashmir.
Mr.
Only
Chairman,
then and then we can see that the people will get the message, and the way the India is pushing the people of Kashmir to the wall. As AVM said, there is no way left for the people of Kashmir because they will have to resist with the violence against the India, and that will again the fragile peace of this continent
It will
be
further
more
radicalize the people, right? Mr. Chairman, tomorrow the joint session of Parliament is going to sit. What exactly should we expect from the debates there, and what will be the outcome, sir?
Well, I think there is this one issue in Pakistan, the Kashmir dispute, which needs to be resolved, and it has always been said that the partition plan isn't complete without the Kashmiri citizens giving their rights. I think that will be the basis of the whole debate, in which across the board feeling will be there, and I think one will find there is total unanimity on Kashmir, regardless of which part of the horizon which party comes from, or the citizens of Pakistan, from all the provinces, from all the parties. On this one issue, as far as I see, there will be total unity. Of course, different types of recommendations will come up, and after these recommendations come up, a few of the top leadership will sit together, and a resolution will be probably drafted and then hopefully passed unanimously, which should give a message, A, to the international community and also to the Indians. You see, the Indians' intransigence, their behavior, the methodology that they have imbibed, the way they have insulated themselves, they've got away with it. Because if you look at these speeches, I was just the other day examining the speeches of Jawaharlal Nehru as Prime Minister of India. He's on record 5 or 6 times on these very UN resolutions that we've just spoken of, and every time he totally supports them, because they were the people that he was the supposed hero for 17 years, continuously Prime Minister. The Gandhi-Nehru leadership is what India thought they were going to be, a secular democratic. Both democracy and secularism now have in many ways been overtaken by the philosophy of Hindutva.
Right.
BJP, not in this election, but in the previous election, where they were the government, also had this, that they would undo these 2 articles of their constitution.
Yes, sir.
They didn't do it then. But now they feel that having won it by a bigger landslide, 330 seats or 40 seats,
Right.
that they're in a position where they can steamroll them and then get away with it.
And we are going to talk about that, especially because current Indian government has created this binary between Sardar Patel's legacy and Nehru's legacy. Unfortunately, they don't realize that Sardar Patel was the man who drafted Article 370. But let me go to telephone. Amr Bilal Sufi, a renowned international law expert, has joined us on telephone. Sufi Sahab, thank you very much for joining us. What is your take? What can Pakistan do at this moment legally to address the matter?
Sorry, I missed part of your question. Can you kindly repeat it? What is the...
Right. We are discussing India's action on Kashmir, especially attempt to abrogate Article 370 and 35A. Now, what exactly should be Pakistan's approach? How can Pakistan ensure that the people of Kashmir get justice?
I think Pakistan needs to raise this issue before international forums and also bilaterally take it up with India in a very stern fashion, because this article, which is 370, represented a pledge of the founding fathers of India with the people of Kashmir, and this is such a deceitful act that Pakistan needs to formally confront India with this as to how they have done this, which is a stark violation of at least 2 bilateral treaties that Pakistan and India has, which is the Lahore Declaration and the Simla Agreement, in which there is a very clear mention of bilateralism, which is something that India has been insisting on over and above the UN resolution framework. So if India is doing unilaterally changes in its constitution and domestic laws, which have a profound effect on the eventual resolution of the issue of Kashmir, then the first venue for Pakistan is to take it up with India and to strongly ask them as to on what basis have they proceeded. As of now, I believe only few documentations have been released by the Indian government, such as the Reorganization Act and the notification and so on and so forth. But complete legal positioning on the part of India has not come forth. A very brief statement by the Indian Prime Minister has come out. But it appears that there has been a very extensive legal exercise undertaken by a large group of lawyers to carry out this entire various steps that are now being represented in the Reorganization Act. And if you look at its length, which is over 50 pages, this is an extraordinary piece of legislation. It can't be prepared in 2 days or a week. Several months have been invested to prepare this, and a large group of people would have been invested, which means India has been deceitfully making efforts to go for a lawfare move against Pakistan. And this is a classic lawfare move where they have tried to achieve their strategic interest through a lawfare approach.
Okay. Right. The problem with confronting India is that it seems that India doesn't seem to be moving or responsive at all. But thank you very much, Amar Bilal Sufi Saab, for helping us understand the matters legally. Let me come back to the studio. AVM Saab, now one has to actually seek justice, confront India as well. And then there is the matter of provocation. I was listening to various pundits on television. Some were calling it an act of war. Some were calling it a provocation that deserves to be answered with a war. What exactly should be Pakistan's posturing, especially when it comes to military domains?
Today, when India announced this particular step, the entire Kashmir is under curfew, and with a very increased number of Indian troops all over Kashmir. So probably you do not expect next 3, 4, 5 days much of news coming out of Kashmir. So but when the life starts to come back to normal, or people have started to come out, you will see that there will be greater protests against the Indian actions and against the Indian occupying forces.
Sir.
So I apprehend that to take the international view away from those protests and the genocide that may result therein, India would resort to a very heavy violations on the line
LOC?
of LOC. And that is a very dangerous prospect. India might also resort to use of air power once again to probably create a situation to avenge the 26th February situation. So I see Pulwama, and then the
Balakot
and so I see a real danger of India trying to divert the international attention away from Kashmir and resorting to violations both on ground and in air.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you are pointing that out, because it seems that no matter what, India's approach to Kashmir and towards Pakistan seems to be a three-dimensional chess. They're looking at multiple levels, right? Hybrid war, and then whatever is going on in Kashmir, then internationally, then regionally as well. Why is it? We have been at it for 72 years. Why is it that we still are pursuing a two-dimensional chess with India?
If you look at the global militant patriotism that is so much evident in Israel through Netanyahu's policies, in America through Trump's policies, and in India through Modi's policies, I think there is a lot of a large pool of anti-Muslim sentiments among these three states and these three global leaders.
Yet they talk for the rights of Chinese Muslims, right?
Yeah.
So you can highlight these matters.
Yeah, these matters can be. So what I'm seeing is that while India would like to follow the policy of Israel, what they did in Palestine, and there is a news item in the Indian newspapers that India tends to have exclusive Hindu communities both in Kashmir, Jammu and Ladakh.
Okay.
That probably is a long-term a plan for changing the demographics of Kashmir itself. And
Right.
that is what I was referring to Tinderbox. When you start having exclusive Indian Hindu communities, that is going to provoke the Muslims over there.
Right. Vani Sahib, if you remember, we also spoke about demographic changes, possible changes. That day you said that Kashmiri Pandits are most welcome because they have been part of Kashmiri, social fabric. But what India is trying to do now is to actually settle them in Chawnis, in the separate colonies, and by doing so, they are creating an unequal kind of atmosphere. Right now, what exactly is the fear of demographic shifts after they have annulled 35A, or they are claiming to do so?
They actually, the plans they had in the past to settle the Kashmiri Pandits in separate colonies,
Yeah.
to separate homelands. Second, to settle the ex-servicemen of Indian Army in Kashmir,
Okay.
to provide land to the landless Indians in Kashmir, to settle them there, and to provide the state subject to the refugees from West Pakistan to that area. These were the 4 elements which they tried to do in past, and they could not do because of the Article 35A of the Constitution. So now they have abrogated that, and it pays way to them that they can do all these things
So
over there.
the idea is to actually trifurcate Kashmir.
Kashmir.
Ladakh has been absorbed already.
They're already done.
What happens to Kargil, by the way, now?
Kargil is with Ladakh. Ladakh and Kargil is the same thing. They're the same thing.
Kargil has been incorporated.
Yeah, they
right?
have been got.
So the Valley and Jammu is going to see a demographic shift. By making it a Muslim minority area, they are going to absorb it further.
Yeah, that's what they are doing. They will settle the landless
It
Indians.
doesn't remind you of Netanyahu, it reminds you of Hitler.
It's because Netanyahu, Hitler, and all those who have done in past, now the India is doing the same. But the thing is that Kashmiris resisted in past. They resisted it. You see, 2008 agitation, if you see in Kashmir, it was first of the agitation at that time when the government of India allotted land to the Amarnath Shrine Board. They allotted the land to them and to construct the structures for them and handed over the land to the Amarnath Shrine Board. And for that purpose, there was a strong protest in Kashmir, which lasted for 3 months. And because of that, Azad government fell in Kashmir.
Yeah.
And again, we saw the Mahbub Mufti government falling in Kashmir. It was again the move from the Indian government at that time,
Okay.
and BJP took support from that. And now they have no assembly there. What I was telling you, in the
I
mean
have to
course of
actually
time, they will do delimitation in the Jammu region. They will increase the seats in the Jammu region, thereby give more seats to the Hindu belt areas.
Okay.
And also in Kashmir, they will handpick people and they will hold elections.
That's a
and
horrible
that
tale.
by they will achieve that figure by way they can give the assent to the decree of the President of India.
Right, and sadly, so far we haven't seen that kind of reaction from the international community,
Yeah,
which seldom comes when it comes to people who are actually suffering, right?
And
I'm
today
told
it was
that
the
we have done
blackest
short
day.
of time.
It was the blackest day. It was told by the CPM parliament
Right.
member in the India, and also Radha Kumar, who was one of the interlocutors in past.
Okay.
She said that is the blackest day in the Indian democracy.
Every day is Black Day in India, especially in Kashmir. Sir, you want to conclude, sir? If you want to very quickly add something, Mr. Chairman, please do.
Well, I think the Indians have played a card which ultimately could hopefully,
Backfire?
in a way, backfire in the sense that there has to be some form of a overall check on this dastardly act that they have made.
Right.
And this is a sort of international institutions ultimately will have to prevail.
Right. AVM, sir?
I think the very act of India threatens peace. And probably this particular act may also lay a trap for Pakistan. So Pakistan needs to be very careful, very alert, agile in looking not only its own house, but also to support the Kashmiri struggle,
Right.
whether it's legal or whether it's physical.
Right. Vani, sir, very quickly.
So I'd like to appeal the government of Pakistan, the people of Pakistan, come to the rescue of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, occupied Jammu and Kashmir, who are suffering too much at the hands of Indians, and India has waged a constitutional war after a military war against them.
Right. Altaf Hussain Wani sahab, thank you very much for your time. AVM retired Faiz Hamid sahab, thank you very much for your time as well. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your time as well. Thank you very much for being here. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. Since few years, for past few years, we have seen India using all the bad measures possible to blind children, to blind people there. But it seems that it is actually India that is getting blinded. How can you start using the measures like that of Hitler and then hope that the world will not see you for what you are? Is really astounding. Yesterday, one of India's famous actors, Anupam Kher, actually tweeted that the Kashmir solution has started. And then most of the people said, is it like Hitler's final solution? It seems that way. So the world community, I don't know whether how relevant morality is internationally, but if you are talking about human rights, then you have to realize that only the people who are living in the countries where you want to pay attention are not humans. The humans also live in Kashmir, and their rights are constantly being abused. So let us hope in coming days we see at least an iota of international morality and sympathy trickling in. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.